a funeral march to carry a coffin over this distance, 40-mile route. The route itself is challenging. I think the biggest challenge most people face is discipline.
I am now speaking about boot care and foot care with a former Coldstream Guard, which is not every day.
Right.
And of course, you guys are known for your admin.
Well, I joined the army at 16. I went to Harrogate first, spent some time in a reconnaissance unit, and then Northern Ireland.
The event price is £75, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible value if you think about it. 40-miler.
Remember, we're in the north.
Yeah.
We anticipate everybody should be able to complete it in 18 hours.
Challenge accepted.
Came in through the gate and she was in tears. She was on her knees. We raced over to her. This lady had completed the route. It was her way of giving her terminal cancer the finger.
Yeah.
She had months left for it.
Phil, I'm so pleased you've joined me. You are the organizer of the Lyke Walk, and this is an event that I'm signed up for. It's the 22nd and 3rd of August. Is that right, Phil?
I think you've got your dates right.
Yeah, very good. And it's a 40-miler. I'm really looking forward to this. Could you describe the Lyke Walk in your own words and what makes it unique compared to other hiking events?
Yeah, look, 30, I've taken part over the years in many events, but there's nothing quite like this. Walking 40 miles is 40 miles, right?
Yeah.
But this has got a series of hills in it. It's got bogs. It's got long, desolate moors that seem to go on forever.
Yeah.
And right at the far distance, which is where the radio mast is, you're walking forever and it never seems to get any closer. But it's steeped in folklore, is this trek.
Right.
So it's linked to a funeral march. It's a coffin route to carry a coffin over this distance.
Oh, okay.
It goes back beyond 1955. The ancient custom around funerals. So the term Lyke refers to a corpse, and a wake is effectively a vigil. With sort of folklore suggesting that the walk itself, the path, mirrors the journey of lost souls to its final resting place.
You know what, Phil? As you know, I'm native Dutch. In Dutch, corpse is Lyke, L-I-J-K, and it's pronounced Lyke.
Right.
So I did not know that until this day, but there is obviously some language. What's the word? The science of etymology. There must be an etymological link between the two words. Then how interesting! It might be Celtic or something, but or Germanic. I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise me at all, Ferdy, if there was a link there, because much of our language is, it's a combination, isn't it? Germanic, French,
Yeah. Now, to this day, we call corpses in Lyke. Yeah.
So the walk itself was originally conceived by a guy called Bill Cowley in 1955.
Right.
Which was literally to walk from Osmothely across the North Yorkshire moors, through the bogs, and get to a place called Ravenscar.
Brilliant.
And to do this trek in 24 hours. So for a lot of your listeners, Ferdy, that are familiar with long-distance hiking, are probably familiar with places in the Brecons or maybe down south in the UK.
Sure.
But I can assure you the bogs up north deserve a gold medal. They are legendary.
Now, 40 miles, that's quite a challenge. Now, part of it is overnight.
Yeah.
What are the biggest challenges that participants will face?
I think the biggest challenges people tend to face is, and I'm not just talking about this 40-mile route, which is, look, the route itself is challenging. We've got plenty of hills to get up that are pretty steep. We've got boggy sections. We've got sections that just appear to go on forever. But I don't think that's the great challenge. I think the biggest challenge most people face is discipline. The discipline to do what is needed in order to be fit enough, to have the right equipment, to be mentally prepared to take this event on before they get there. So there's 3 stages. The discipline to do what's needed before the event. The discipline to do what is needed on the event itself, such as not going off too fast. So what we found is, because all the hills are in the first sort of 7 or 8 miles, you can get, the guys who tend to take off way too fast. And the next day, especially in the boggy sections, they're really struggling. So the discipline to walk at a nice steady pace yourself on the hills.
Yeah.
and the discipline to eat regularly, to drink enough water, especially water. Not, and we've seen, look, we've been doing this events for years, and if there's one thing that we see consistently is people not drinking enough. They're
Right,
often
right.
very, very
Yeah,
tired, if not on the event, certainly the next day.
yeah.
And then the discipline to handle things after the event, such as, maybe the cold showers, getting cold water on the legs to reduce inflammation and swelling, the discipline of eating the right kind of foods, and the discipline to have good sleep discipline, catch up on your sleep.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
So I'd say discipline.
Very good point, and certainly something I recognise. I've done my share of long distance events, and you can learn a lot by doing your research. But in terms of what food, it's trial and error, isn't it? You have to sort of, and I guess somebody attempting a 40-miler, it's unlikely to be their first event. You're absolutely right. You sort of find your way, don't you? And people have different things that they like. Like, for instance, dried fruit. I find, for me, doesn't really, some people swear by it, but I tried it once. I had like dried mango and bits of dried apple, and it didn't work for me. I mean, obviously you need the carbs. I actually like bakery items, sort of biscuits. I have a bakery nearby, and I love eating it, and it's easy carbs. But yeah, you just find that through trial and error, don't you? And obviously some nuts to get salt in. I personally avoid gels and all that stuff because I don't enjoy eating. I'll tell you what, I often carry electrolyte tablets with me because I understand that sometimes you need certain things. The problem with gels is that I've tried it. I don't enjoy eating them, and then it's not as much of a morale boost. Whereas if it's something that works and that I enjoy eating, then you look forward to it, don't you?
Well, listen, I totally agree with you. I'm not one for gels. In fact, when I have sports gels on long distance events, some of the 50 milers that I've done where I've tried, somebody's handed me a gel, and in that moment, my body reacts badly to it. So I felt nauseous. It's almost an allergic reaction. My blood pressure drops. I feel weak, faint. So I don't touch gels personally.
I mean,
What I do swear by are those mini sausages. Mini sausages, I just love them.
I love meats, yeah.
And pork pies. One of the things that I've learned, especially being in the north, because we tend to do a lot of stuff in very cold conditions. So we want fat. We want things with plenty of fat in it. So carbs are pretty good, but the body converts carbs to sugars and then uses it when we're hard exercising. We want to store some stuff because we can't be eating all the time. So especially as a mountain leader, I get some food down me. They're going to focus on delivering in the group. So the nutrition side is a really important aspect of it. But I don't know about you, Ferdy, but I don't eat much once I'm taking part in an event. I'm a grazer.
Right. Oh, yeah. Little bits.
So I tend to eat bits so I can go quicker. And if I do need to get some food down, if I feel hungry, then I've missed a trick. Same with thirst. If I'm feeling thirsty, well, you know what? I've missed a trick. I should have been drinking earlier. So I try, this is the discipline bit. I do try just to keep chucking food in on the hour, every hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, the food side's really important for these events.
No, absolutely.
A piece of advice I always give to people when doing stuff with us is have food that you can't wait to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
And make sure it's not food that you're unfamiliar with. So you're not going to get a reaction to it. You know exactly how your body will respond to those kind of foods.
Yeah. Any advice for someone like me who's taking part for the first time?
It's really great to have you taking part in an event with us. So in terms of what I would say is go easy on the first stage because it's not a race, this is not a race. It's almost a tribute to yourself and, life and getting through hurdles and challenges. When you reach the end of the trail, you'll be given a candle if you haven't brought one yourself. In fact, I've got one here for you, Ferdy. There you go.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that's our lighting, is it?
So the trail itself, when you finish the walk, having a lit candle represents life.
I see. I see. Yeah.
Despite the hurdles in life,
yeah.
You are still here. And this is what it's all about. Because we know life is a challenge. I think the Buddhists suggest life is suffering with moments of joy if you can be present enough for those. So we celebrate this with the candle at the end. If you use poles, which I've seen you using poles before.
Yes.
I'd say poles are very useful on the first stages. So whilst the hill phase is not quite fan dance. We're not doing things like the Yorkshire Three Peaks levels. It's still over 1,000 feet, and they are steep, and there's plenty of them. So you're going to get plenty of chance to get the quads working. So I would certainly suggest using walking poles for those who are used to using them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a mountain leader for over 35 years.
Wow.
And I'm still able to do long distance treks. My knees are in one piece because I use walking poles. And whilst I was skeptical initially, probably like
same here.
veterans and military people, walking poles, you don't need walking poles. But actually they're an aid. That's all they are.
Yeah.
And they're a very good one.
Well, and arguably, you get a more full body workout because you are now using your arms more actively. You're getting a bit more of an arm workout as a result.
Yeah, no, I would agree. You should really, a description I use when we're teaching people how to use poles is you're going into 4x4 mode. Yes, you're still using your legs, but you're using your arms and the muscles and the top part of your body, together. And it makes going up steep ground easier and coming down safer. And don't forget, I mean, when we come down hills, we put a lot more pressure on our knees than we do when we're going up. So this is where poles can really help. One other thing I might suggest as well, if I may, and that is, choosing the right equipment for an event like this is important as well. And buying equipment is all part and parcel of doing these challenges. It's great, isn't it? We do our research and we want the very best jackets with the highest level of waterproofness or hydrostatic head is the term they use. But I always suggest starting with the feet, and I always recommend good socks, Bridgedale's, 1,000 milers.
Yeah.
Good quality socks. But there's a new fad which has come out, Ferdy. I don't know if you've tried these yet, but this is quite funny. Again, I was very skeptical.
Sure.
But I've got to share this one with you because they're just brilliant. I've got scars on my feet.
Right.
So I get blistered quite easily. So I have to take my feet up. So I use zinc oxide tape or KT tape.
Yeah.
But what I found is if I'm doing some fell running type distance where I'm running maybe 30 miles or so, I prefer to use these. They're gloves for the feet.
Okay. I'm not aware of those. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. So these things here, for your listeners, if they can't see this, it's basically a glove that goes over the foot with little bits that cover each individual toe. These happen to be merino, and merino is particularly good for distributing heat, and that's what we want to avoid blisters. Anything that distributes heat, that's really great, and moisture. So socks, good quality footwear. We don't have a preference on this. It's whatever people choose to bring. They're adults who are taking part. So unlike if we were doing, a rocky, scrambly type area up in the Lake District, for this route, we would suggest fell shoes. For those who want to walk in boots, they can, but it's a long way to walk in boots with your pack on. But it's whatever works for the individual.
Yes. Now, that's very interesting. I think I'm lucky. Last time I did a 40 miler in one go, that would have been the endurance route. It's just in under 24 hours. That was with the pack. Every checkpoint, DS would say, you want to change your socks? And my feet felt so good that I thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I was almost a bit worried of taking my shoes off because I thought, I don't know what I'm going to find. So I thought, I'll just keep going because I had no complaints. And I had lots of spare socks with me. And then I got back to my tent after completing it and the next morning, and it was quite shocking. I got a picture on my Facebook. They were completely pristine. I had not even a blister. Now, I don't know that was obviously the right combination of boots and socks, and they were absolutely Bridgedale. I'm not going to depend on that. So I will always take talcum powder and socks. But and maybe that was just luck of the draw. I just had particularly good feet that day. But if it works, it works. Now, I'm interested in these socks that you've just described, but I'd need to test them, right? You don't want to test them on the day. So I'll need to start experimenting with them.
Yeah, do it.
But knock on wood. In my case, I've been lucky, but I know that's just not everyone. And these things can change.
I'd say there's two other things to consider with the feet as well. The first is we don't use talc, we use proper walking foot powder.
Okay.
It's 40 times more absorbent than talc. So
well, there we go.
Talc tends to clump. Whereas you can buy a proper walking foot powder from Boots, the shawl type stuff. It's not a lot of money, but you'll never go back to talc. And the other thing is the lacing. The lacing is really important to stop the foot from sliding forward.
Yes.
in the shoe, sports lacing. So, your readers can take a look at this on Google so they don't get the huge blisters on the front of their toes going on the downhill descents.
Now we're going to take a bit of a sidestep because I am now speaking about boot care and foot care with a former Coldstream Guard, which is not every day.
Right.
And of course, you guys are known for your admin when it comes to keeping your boots pristine. I don't think there's any other regiment that spends quite as much time looking after its boots. So we'll get back onto the event in a minute, but why don't we take a little sidestep? Could you tell us a little bit about your military history?
Yeah, no. Well, I joined the army at 16.
Right.
As a boy soldier, I joined the Coldstream Guards. I didn't really have much of an idea what I was doing. I just wanted to join the army.
So can I ask, Phil, does that mean that at 16 you could actually join that regiment, or was it a sort of it wasn't Harrogate or anything like that? You were actually joining the regiment?
Well, I went to Harrogate first.
Oh, you did go to Harrogate first, yeah.
When I joined the army when I went to join the army in 1981, lots of other people wanted to do the same. It was seen as a really good thing to do. So getting in the army back then was quite the challenge, and I consider myself fortunate. So I was given a place within the Coldstream Guards, and I very quickly realised that comfort wasn't on the agenda down at the Guards depot when I was doing my training. The Irish Guards, Scots Guards, Welsh Guards, and the Grenadier Guards, Blues and Royals and Life Guards were all doing their boots as keenly as
So Phil, if I can ask, because obviously this is obvious to you, but so all of these, there's 5 Foot Guards regiment, is that right?
Yes.
That you've just mentioned. So Life, Coldstream, Irish, Welsh is the youngest, the Welsh, right? And which one am I missing?
That's right.
And then there's which is the 5th?
So we've got the Grenadiers.
Oh, Grenadiers, I missed that one.
Yeah,
That's the one I missed.
We don't really want to talk about those.
Okay, yeah, because you're both very old, right? I mean, I guess you're the oldest.
Well,
Coldstream are the oldest.
Actually, yes and no to that question.
Okay.
We are the oldest regiment in continuous service.
I see, okay.
And the regimental motto is nulla secundus, which means second to none.
Right.
There's no question, in my opinion, that the regiment has aimed to deliver against that for a long time. But the army's changed and will continue to change, and standards change all the time. So, but when I was sent to Germany after finishing my training for 2 years, and then to Brecon to do my section commander's training. I did my weapons instructor training and a few other things. Spent some time in a reconnaissance unit, and then Northern Ireland. And I think it was only really when I got to do some work with the Royal Marine Commando mountain leaders.
Yeah.
I hope I've got the term right for those guys, because they really impressed us. They were attached to our battalion when we were in Canada. And these 2 mountain leaders were both corporals, and they were superb. They really dovetailed into our unit well. They had a lot of respect for our unit.
Yeah.
The regiment, the battalion I was in at the time, was supremely fit, produced some superb soldiers. And these guys were sent to deliver some adventure training activities. So myself and a couple of the other guys, we volunteered in the way that the army gets its volunteers, i.e., Corporal Lee, you're going up the mountain with these guys. But I loved it. 1 minute we were chatting about the Royal Marines and how, their unit operates and how we operate. And whilst crossing glaciers, crevasses, we went up Mount St. Nicholas in the Colombian ice fields. These guys inspired me, and I think it was those guys who planted the seed for me to perhaps want more of an outdoorsy life than what I was getting based in London, doing Trooping of the Colour and Queen's Guards and all that kind of thing, which it served its place, but it wasn't satisfying for me.
Right.
Which actually is part of the reason why when my brother spoke to me about joining the army, I suggested to join the Royal Marines, which he did.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So in the army, I guess, I was going from A to B in a smart uniform and soldier-like manner. And then when I became a mountain leader, I was going from A to B whilst getting present to the environment, studying cloud formations, understanding the flowers that I'd previously been trampling on, and taking a great deal of interest and honing my skills on navigation, especially in bad weather conditions.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up becoming a mountain leader. Unit expedition leaders training in the army.
Okay.
First, as well as all the other stuff that you do as a section commander, your navigation stuff, the reconnaissance stuff at night. But I actually did my mountain leader qualification as a civilian.
Okay, yeah.
And interestingly enough, the guy who assessed me was a former captain from the Royal Marines. And,
Wow.
well, he told us he was in the SBS, and he beasted us over pretty much every single contour line in the Lake District to get through assessment. But for me, just a really good thing. And whilst I found it difficult to speak about the flowers and fauna and all the other things that you'd expect from a civilian mountain leader, these are all things that I had to learn. But the navigation, which is arguably the most important thing, for me, with the experience I'd had within the military, it set me up really well.
Yeah, yeah. But before we move on, because I do find it very interesting, also you described the ceremonial side. There's some great documentary, obviously with the recent coronation, or I say recent, past few years, the coronation of the king, obviously the sad passing of the queen, Jubilee that was before that. And there's two documentaries I saw, and I did look at them, and it did give me a new appreciation of the level of admin, the level of excellence. You know what it reminded me of? Swiss watchmaking, almost. The meticulous level of care for getting everything just right. And I know you were very open about it wasn't perhaps the bit that appealed to you most, but was there a level of exactness that you have taken forward into life?
Yeah, high standards. So when we talk about nullus secundus, second to none, I've tried to maintain very high standards, and that hasn't changed. I mean, high standards in everything that I try to do. And as a business, we've taken over 15,000 people around the Yorkshire Three Peaks, and we've raised over £2 million for various charities. But our safety track record is 100%. We've not lost one person.
Right.
Although we do around 20 to 40 rescues a season, they tend to be people who are taking part in other events, and they're poorly prepared or all kinds of things. So my team are very similar. I kind of run it in the same way that you may look after an infantry section. Good leadership, owning situations, owning your responsibilities, and delivering against your word. And the ethos still remains in me to this day. I still go to the reunions occasionally, and it's great to see the guys who I once served with, who had standards that were much higher than mine. They're still there. They're still proud Coldstreamers. And they're very committed and great servants to this country. It's a shame some people who run this country perhaps don't appreciate it as much as they should.
Yeah. Whilst I always avoid politics on the channel, but I think what we can agree, there's clearly a move now to increase investment in the armed forces. Yeah, that's across Europe, of course, with all the new threats. And actually, I think things like these events and these challenges, they're an opportunity for civilians or former service members or anyone with an interest really in looking after themselves, exposing themselves to challenging situations, and it will absolutely work miracles. If God forbid we get into a situation where there is a crisis, right, and it will put one, I think, in very good stead to have at least exposed oneself and sort of learned to deal with difficult situation, improvise, overcome, having that mental robustness. And these are all things like any muscle, you need to keep training it, right? You can get soft very quickly, and that's both physically and mentally.
I think one of the things that you've mentioned there, which is important, is this ability to adapt. But there's another word as well, which is to own. We own it. We own that scenario and our response to it. So I remember my first day at the Guards depot, where I had the most immaculate Coldstream Guards platoon sergeant stand in front of us, and he opened his mouth and threw out some of the finest insults I've ever heard, even to this day. And I remember looking at this immaculate attired individual. The language that was coming out of his mouth is unbelievable. Of course, I'd just left school, so nobody had ever spoken to me or these other guys anything like this. And it was in one ear and out of the other 30. And that's what you have to do, isn't it? It's almost like, it's a lot of noise, but it's going in here and it's out of there, because we're focusing on completing our training and becoming, a soldier. Whatever.
No, very interesting. And as people who follow the channel know, I love military history. At any given time, I'm always working on a military history video, but they take a long time to make. And in the meantime, I do other types of videos. So that's why I could talk at length. But moving back to the event now, what I've noticed upon reading the description is that it poses the challenge to the participants. Can you finish in under 18 hours? Is that a benchmark that people strive to?
Well, look, the participants have got 24 hours to complete it.
Right. Yeah.
We anticipate everybody should be able to complete it in 18 hours
Right.
or
Right.
under.
Yeah.
So I could come up with a number for you, Ferdy, and see how you get on. Maybe we should be looking at 12 hours for you.
No. Because I'm not going to be running the whole thing, Phil. No, I like. I mean, I'll have to get a shuffle on to get 18 hours, but I'm not built like a fell runner. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Look, I'm 6 foot and 15 stone, and I tend to go at a steady pace. I've always found
Yeah.
that works. But yeah, with this, 18 hours is more than adequate. You know,
Well, that's what I'd be very pleased.
yeah.
Well, I if I finish, and if I make it sub 18, but challenge accepted, and this is going to go onto the channel. So I've put that out there now.
Well done.
Now, and my training is already started, right? I did an event yesterday. I've got a number of events between now and then. Next one I'm looking. So I did Paris 10 yesterday. That was just an absolute joy. It'll be a video forthcoming, and then actually once this is up, it may already have been posted. And then I'm really looking forward to the Weekend 9 challenge in the Howgill Fells, which I've been once before, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that because it's part of the world I wasn't familiar with. But again, I found that very challenging. It also depends on the weather. That day it was very hot, but no, it's great. If a challenge really pushes you, where you're actually not sure you're going to, basically, if I do a park run on Saturdays, 5K, then unless I'm really injured, I'm going to complete, right? Obviously, I do 99% of people who sign up. But challenges that make you a bit scared and you're like, right, I really need to get my skates on. Yeah. And I think that's true for both the Weekend 9 that I'm doing in a few weeks, but also very much for the Lake Wyke walk. So yeah, challenge accepted, 18 hours. And that is, yeah, I'll have to put my money where my mouth is. Yeah, that's by no means a given. No. We've talked about your own military history, but in terms of navigation skills, what navigation skills do people need to, if they're thinking about signing up?
Well, first and foremost, unlike some other events where they'll give participants an 8-figure grid reference, for example, you need to get here by, we give everybody a GPX file that they can download onto their watch, like the one I'm wearing here, Garmin.
Yeah.
Or onto their smartwatch, their mobile phones. So we don't have a problem with embracing
good
technology. People can follow their phones. Some of the latest phones in particular, like the Google Pixel 9 Pro, it's superb. It's got a very high IP rating, which is its water and dust proofness and all that kind of stuff. And the latest phones also have satellite SOS on them as well. So for us, this is a fabulous feature that some of these phones are now possessing. But we'll also provide a guide, as in a physical mountain leader. And my mountain leaders, the guys in our team, are supremely fit. You know, they're fell runners, they're people who've taken part in some of the UK's hardest events. These are the guys who, you know, when we get to Ravenscar, could turn around and run back. So they will be in our team too.
Right.
As well as a safety team, checkpoints, a support vehicle, a minibus, that is, to get people back and also to support the individuals on the route as well. So for individuals who want to remain with a mountain leader, they can. Equally, for those who want to crack on because they don't really want to be walking with somebody else, that's okay too, because they'll have the GPX files, they'll have a written guide for the route as well. And for, you know, if we had somebody who we were a little bit unsure about, we can also give them live trackers. So, you know, we may end up giving a few people trackers as well for that extra layer of safety, because that, as I mentioned earlier, that is really important for us.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And obviously you've got that excellent track record. One thing I also discovered when sort of reading through the event page is this concept of facing the Grim Reaper at the end. And I know you alluded to it briefly. Where does that tradition come from?
Yeah. So the Lyke Walk isn't just a brutal 40-mile walk across north of England's bogs and moors and up and down the hills. It's a bit of a spooky walk, which emanates from folklore. So where does it emanate? Well, even to this day, no one really knows. That's what makes it so interesting. They haven't found the source of, for example, the poem, which it's dated. The language used in the poem is dated well before 1955, when Bill Cowley created the route that we're familiar with now.
Right.
But the route has always been there. It's called a Lyke dirge, an ancient funeral poem.
And I can put a link. So for people watching this, there'll be a link in the description of the video. And
So yeah, it's been passed down, and this thing tends to be read out at wakes. The poem is actually about how we conduct our lives and whether or not we do things for others, the charitable thing for other people, and how we cope with life's challenges.
right.
Because life is full of surprises and sometimes unwanted ones, and how we respond to those. And the idea behind the candle at the end is, I defy the Grim Reaper, and the candle, the flame in the candle, that flickering light, that's my light. I am still here despite everything.
Yeah.
Real invitation to personal challenges. It's great.
Brilliant. In terms of memorable stories that you've heard from participants to previous events, any sort of memorable stories that you might be able to share with us?
Yeah, this individual wasn't one of our clients. It was
Okay.
a lady who came hobbling through the gate at the end of doing the 24.5 mile Yorkshire Three Peaks over 7,000 feet of climb. She came in through the gate and she was in tears. She was on her knees. She dropped her walking poles, fell to the floor, was crying. We raced over to her because we were concerned about her emotional well-being, wondering whether or not maybe she was injured. But it turned out that this lady had completed the route. It was her way of giving her terminal cancer the finger almost, It's like,
Wow.
yeah, she had months left for it. And we were all moved. In fact,
Fantastic.
it actually changed some of the things that we did as a business, because I didn't have a courage medal to give her. But I wanted to give her a courage. I wish I'd had something in the moment
Yes.
to give her and say, I recognize your courage.
Yes.
I didn't have one, but we created them afterwards. And we've only given out maybe 30 of these things in over 13 years. But the individuals who get them really deserve them.
Yes. Wow, that's fantastic.
One was a lad called Dan, who had signed up to do an event with us, the Three Peaks again. And on his medical declaration, which we have to have done for insurance reasons, and it's good practice anyway, but do you have any issues that we need to be aware of, medical issues? Yes, I'm blind. So he wanted to do the Yorkshire Three Peaks, and he's blind. So we've never seen that on
No.
a registration document before. So I called the guy and he laughed on the phone and said, yes, I'm blind as a bat. His words, not mine. And I've been blind since birth, but I've always wanted to do this. I go walking a lot.
Yeah.
I believe I can do it. So this guy turned up. He was only 21 and he turned up, and the equipment he had, his walking shoes, his trousers, everything was really poor. Thankfully,
right.
one of a very close friend and client, she offered to buy him everything he needed. So we took him to go outdoors, kitted him out with everything we could get, and we didn't buy the cheap stuff. We went for really great quality gear. And on the day of the event, the weather was okay. It was good, but we couldn't find a chaperone for him. And it was one of my crew, one of my team members,
Yes.
was going to have to take him around. When we found there were two serving regimental sergeant majors doing an event with us.
Wow.
So, yeah, these guys were doing an event for the Army Benevolent Fund, who we were hosting, and they offered to take him around the route. And they were brilliant with Dan.
How
This
incredible.
guy. And they got him around the route. And when he finished the event, this guy was emotional. He had tears. Of course, his tear
Yes.
didn't work. And that was a really memorable moment as well, because there was a lot of goodwill from the
Yes.
two Army Sergeant Majors, and the sheer determination of Dan to finish. And
Yes.
to do this event was breathtaking. So we do get
That's
some
fantastic.
great inspiring stories.
That is a great thing, and it makes you believe in destiny almost, don't you? Because those guys are so well placed, having guided young people through careers, and most of their job is about giving people direction and guidance, and obviously they'll be very familiar with how to get the most out of someone. So that's absolutely real poetic quality there. And while we've actually touched on this, but I had a question here. How do you think completing this challenge changes people physically, mentally, and even emotionally?
Yeah, look, I'm a massive believer in getting committed. You and I met on we've done a couple of events actually, haven't we? We did
Yes.
the last one you and I took part in was it was the Paris Trinity, was it?
The trilogy, yes, the first in events one.
Yeah.
With Tom Blakey, was it that one? Yeah.
That was fabulous. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Tom runs a really good tight ship there. It's great. He's a great individual. And we've also done the SF events, Special Forces experience events. Again, they run their events really well. I've personally learnt this from doing. So years and years ago, I came back from America with a blood clot in my leg and struggled to walk. And I saw an advertisement for a 267-mile fell race called the Montane Spine Race, which you may or may not have heard of.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I'm nowhere near taking on a challenge of that magnitude, but wow, yeah, I'm aware of it. But maybe for the viewers, it'd be good to talk about the magnitude of it.
If you love your endurance event, the Montane Spine Race is right up there. So I couldn't even walk to the car without being in a huge amount of pain. And but I sat there looking at this event thinking, wow. So I signed up for it. I mean, I couldn't even walk to the car. But and I had something like 7 months to train for it.
Right.
But it took me 3 months to walk properly.
And remind us, how far is it? What's the distance?
So the Montane Spine Race is 267 miles along the Pennine Way. So you start in a place called Edale in Yorkshire, and you walk all the way to the Scottish border. So, yeah.
Crazy.
And you do the Pennine Way, up and down plenty of mountains and through plenty of bogs. And it's in January, so you may be wading through snow. So it's a good expedition.
Now, for that length, you're sleeping, aren't you? As in, you're not awake for that whole distance, are you? Like, you need to plan rest, right? I would imagine, for that sort of distance.
I think some of the guys try and push on as far as they can without sleeping. And,
oh, really?
So by day 3, they're all walking zombies. So, but a good sleep strategy is essentially if you're going to complete it. Equally, if you're aiming to complete it in the top 10, let's say, you've got to be pretty exceptional. There's a lot of running involved because it is a race. Is the Montane?
Yeah.
For those of us who weren't that bothered about racing, it was all about personal administration, your sleep strategies, and just the will to complete it.
And can I ask, so are you carrying a lightweight bivy? Where do you get your kip?
So the majority of people try and sleep in the checkpoints.
Oh, they have checkpoints where you could sleep. Okay.
Yeah, but that's pretty difficult in the early stages because there's so much noise and the lights are on and one thing and another. I know when I took part, I found myself getting, it's quite a funny story. I was on top of Malham Cove, so I think I'd done about 80 odd miles by this point. And on top of the cove, it was almost like I was overcome with, feeling a little bit sleepy. And I sat down and there was a light rain and I pulled my hood up and I looked at my watch and it was something like 1 a.m. And I closed my eyes for a second and I opened my eyes and I looked at my watch and it was 25 past.
Wow.
So I'd actually had 20 minutes sleep.
Yeah.
Sitting upright. So where you get your sleep, for the majority, you want to be sleeping for more than 20 minutes. But those little cat naps are brilliant. Yeah.
I don't think I've experienced them, but I've heard people talk about it. Even when I did the 40 miler, somebody said, you know what, last time I did this, there was a chap sitting on a log and I went over to chat to him and I realized he was asleep. Anyway, what kind of safety measures are in place for the event and what happens if someone needs to, say, drop out at any point of the route?
Well, it's probable that we will get a few people who can't complete the route.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point of having a safety support vehicle.
Yeah.
And having good comms, really, really important for us. On this route is actually pretty good for comms. There's good mobile phone signals, but the guys have got walkie-talkies. We use licensed radios, the guys, the mountain leaders up there, and we'll be basically checking everybody at the various checkpoints, not just their physical welfare, but psychologically, are you okay? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
And reminding them of why they're doing this, because sometimes you can have people who may say, yeah, I'm thinking about giving up. Well, thinking about giving up is normal.
Yes.
You haven't given up. You're thinking about it. Well, keep going and keep thinking about giving up.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, just get to that next, one step at a time, right? Break it up in chunks. No, that's absolutely the secret. Yeah. That's great. In terms of wildlife and areas of natural beauty, anything that I should be looking out for?
Well, if you've got military personnel taking part in this, military personnel tend to want to get from A to B rapido.
Yes.
They're less bothered about looking for the long-eared owl in the woods. But interestingly enough, we are going to be hearing the owls as we go through the woods because we're going to be going through at night. and there's plenty of them out there. So we will hear them. We may see deer.
Yeah.
We usually do. During the day, skylarks, grouse, because they do feed the grouse up there. You'll see the grit feeding stations on the route. And the other thing about this area, which is, it really is special. When we get on the high ground, take a look up further. It's a dark skies area, which means the Milky Way is going to be visible. The stars are huge. It's fabulous. So, yeah, we're going to be walking through the night. So there's a lot to see. And then obviously when we get towards the end,
Yes.
when we get to the radio mast, for those who want to, drop a little further down into Ravenscar and you can see the building works. Because Ravenscar is a town that never was. The idea being is they were going to build a competitor to Scarborough for people with money, basically, to holiday. And they built the hotel, they built the train station, and they even put the foundations in for some very expensive hotels and properties. And then somebody pointed out that there was no beach. So the investors pulled out. And so what's left of the place now? The train station, sadly, has gone.
Yeah.
There is the disused line. The hotel is there. The hotel is successful, actually. And the foundations are there. And there is actually a trail that takes you down to the beach. And the beach, that isn't a beach, is a pebble beach. So, but when we get there, the views from the cliffs are something else. It's a beautiful location. I can understand why it was chosen.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's a lot to see. It's a beautiful route.
Sounds fantastic. Well, you're really sort of whetting my appetite, and I know that there's plenty of time to continue my preparation, but this is the great thing about events. I've always got a few to look forward to, which means when I'm going for a run or I'm doing training, it's not so boring because I think I'm actually training for something, you know, I'm making my life easier further down the route. So I'm really looking forward to this. For those people that have been listening and viewing who are interested in participating, what's the registration process? And I'll make sure to put a link in the description, which is probably the easiest. But
yeah, brilliant. We've made it dead easy. All they need to do is to go onto the Over Limits website and have a look at the events. There's not too many mentioned in there because we are a service provider typically. But these are open events. So they'll see the Lyke Walk page. They only have to put a few details in there, pay for it, job done.
Yeah.
And then the small matter of completing it in order to earn one of these 30. I've got to tell you about
Fantastic.
this. So for those people who can't see this, we've had real problems actually getting decent medals done.
Yeah.
We've really wanted to give good quality medals out because we've seen what other people do, especially some of those guys we've spoken about earlier. And every time I've reached out to them to say, you know, help me out. Who does your medals? Radio silence. They're not sharing trade secrets. But we had this one made. And these, I believe, these are the best event medals that I have yet seen.
Looks fantastic.
They are big, heavy things, you know, and they are, you know, the black ribbon, the candle, the Grim Reaper. It's all on there, you know. And these things cost a lot of money, but they're included in the price, but people have to earn them first.
Yeah. But which brings me to the next, because am I right? It's the event price is £75, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's incredible value if you think about it. But it's for a 40 miler and having the infrastructure in place for that sort of distance, that is fantastic value.
Yeah. Well, we try and remember we're in the north.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm a Yorkshireman as well. And you know what to say about Yorkshiremen. We are rather frugal. So, no, we want to keep it accessible.
Yeah.
And remember, by far the majority of people who are taking part are fundraising for their charities.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And that's in the spirit of this event as well. So
yes.
I would say to you, any of your listeners, your supporters, if they want to take part, they don't have to fundraise. But it would be a good thing if they did, because that is an alignment to the ethos of the event.
Yes. Yeah, and a 40 miler, that's something that where you're impressing people around you. I mean, that's a proper challenge and a half, isn't it?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing people, you know, at the end. I want to see you, Freddie. I can't wait to see you with this thing, you know.
Yes.
Medal.
Yeah. Well,
we have got a backdrop banner thing that we're currently having designed. So just to kind of go a little bit over the top with it. But reward and recognition, it plays a big part in this.
No, absolutely. And then for the viewers, so I have got all my long events further at the end of the year because I've got the Lake White Walk and then couple of weeks later, I'm going to attempt endurance, which is also 40 miles. So I actually think that's quite good because I'm getting myself ready for, you know, a period of two extremely challenging events. It keeps me. Your event certainly helps to keep me going on my training and my and my mindset. Phil, that covers everything that I wanted to ask you today. I don't know if there's anything else that you feel that you wanted to add.
Not really. It literally is a case of, or maybe one thing. And you know, we were talking earlier about just sign up and watch what happens when you sign up to an event. We get really engaged at almost like an unconscious cognitive level.
Yes.
And so you start paying attention to what you're eating, what you're buying, what you're watching on YouTube, you know. And I remember the first civilian fan dance event that I did, and I was watching all your videos. So it's been a long time since I've been involved in anything military, but it was great. So I think the same goes for this. If you've got doubts, listen to the doubts, but get signed up anyway.
Yes,
you've got plenty of time between now and then. And you'll get yourself in good shape between now and then.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the commitment thing.
Well, there's a heart routine community, and for anyone watching, there we have a Facebook group. I'll put a link in the description under the video, and anyone that's gonna do the Lake Wyke walk, I will obviously see you there on the day. And with that, Phil, thank you so much for organising the event and for being here today to talk about it. And I'm sure we will speak between now and then. And obviously look forward to seeing you at the event on the 22nd and 23rd of August. Thanks for that, Phil. And last final word to the viewer. If you've enjoyed that and you're not subscribed yet, please, could I ask that you do and perhaps leave a like. And then I will leave you with what I always say. See you in the hills.